Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Don't get in the car. The scream pierced the cold air of the late autumn afternoon like a clap of thunder through a clear sky. Jamie, a skinny 14-year-old boy, was panting, his face red and his eyes brimming with terror. His voice was broken, breathless, as if he had run for miles to reach Michael Harper. Michael, his keys dangling over the door of his black Tesla, froze instantly. Time seemed to slow down around him. The distant roar of cars on the street faded into an almost unearthly silence. He slowly turned his head toward Jamie. The boy, dressed in an oversized sweatshirt and faded jeans, came from the poor neighborhood of Southside Chicago, a world so far removed from Michael's, it was almost unreal. "Jamie, what are you talking about?" Michael asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief, irritation, and a hint of impatience. He was still thinking about the meeting he'd just left, the figures and contracts that governed his empire. But Jamie didn't answer. His eyes stared intently at the car, as if he'd seen something invisible, something unspeakable. A cold shiver ran down Michael's spine. "What did you see?" he whispered, stepping towards the boy. Then, suddenly, Jamie staggered. His body buckled, his legs no longer supported his weight, and he fell heavily to the pavement. Michael rushed over, his heart pounding in his chest. He placed a trembling hand on the boy's shoulder. "Jamie, breathe, boy, talk to me." But there was no breath, no movement. Jamie's eyes were closed, his face frozen in a pained expression, as if he had seen death coming. An icy silence fell on the street, a heavy, oppressive silence, a silent cry in a city that too often turned a blind eye to the pain of others. Michael Harper was a man of power and money. At 42, he embodied the American dream in all its splendor. Heir to his father's construction fortune, he headed Harper Developments, a real estate empire that was shaping Chicago's modern face a little more each day. From gleaming skyscrapers to upscale residential neighborhoods, his name was everywhere. Yet behind this blazing success, there were shadows that Michael preferred not to see. Brutal evictions orchestrated in forgotten neighborhoods, families chased away without ceremony, streets where hope was slowly fading. The South Side, the neighborhood where Jamie lived, was one of those abandoned places, a puzzle of poverty and oblivion in a city that was moving forward without reaching out to him. Michael had always considered himself a just man, a builder who contributed to progress. He had convinced himself that his work, his investments, would ultimately improve the lives of all. But today, with this dead boy at his feet, that comfortable narrative was crumbling. Something inside him had broken irreparably. The police quickly concluded it was cardiac arrest. It was the official version, the simplest, the quickest. Jamie, a fragile boy from the South Side, had succumbed to a sudden, inexplicable seizure. No sign of a struggle, no witnesses other than Michael. The case was closed. But Michael Harper couldn't accept that explanation. His instincts, the same instincts that had propelled him to the top of the business world, screamed at him that there was more to it, that this death was no accident, that Jamie hadn't simply collapsed out of bad luck. The following days were a tumult of doubt and anxiety. Michael, unable to let the truth fade away, hired Sarah Mitchell, a private investigator renowned for urban investigations, a perceptive and unwavering woman known for never giving up. Sarah was a woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and features marked by years spent probing the underbelly of cities, unraveling the secrets some preferred to keep buried. When she took on the case, she knew it wasn't just a natural death. She began by examining the car, a brand new Tesla Model S, a symbol of success and modernity, but this time hiding a macabre secret. Under the driver's seat, a device had been installed, a homemade bomb, a rudimentary but effective mechanism designed to explode the moment Michael sat down. But someone, or something, had prevented the ultimate tragedy. The detonator had been defused at the last second. Sarah felt her horror grow. Jamie had seen the danger. Jamie had tried to warn Michael. Michael then delved into Jamie and his family's past. He met Anna Collins, a woman with a hard gaze, both broken and unshakable. Anna had worked for Harper Developments, joining the administrative team before being abruptly dismissed after denouncing internal malpractices, bribery, widespread corruption, illegal practices that were plaguing the company. She had been a lone voice in the complicit silence of the luxurious offices. She had tried to alert Michael, but her words had been stifled. For her, the survival of her family and the dignity of the people of the South Side came first. But this fight had cost her dearly: a job, a reputation, security. Michael began to understand. Jamie was no mere victim of chance. He had died a hero, protecting his own father, but more importantly, the truth Michael had chosen to ignore. This revelation shook Michael to his core. The boy he had thought distant, insignificant, had actually saved his life by giving his own. Michael promised himself that this truth, even if it would destroy his empire, would finally be heard. That Jamie would not have died in vain. The conspiracy was bigger than anything Michael Harper could have imagined. This wasn't just an isolated attack, or even a personal vendetta. It was a cold, methodical operation planned for months, perhaps years, by forces operating in the shadows. And the most unbearable thing for him was that these forces came from within. The first names revealed by Sarah Mitchell shook her. Gerald Monroe, CFO of Harper Developments for over 10 years, a man Michael considered a mentor. Rena Caldwell, head of the legal department, brilliant, outwardly loyal, but who had discreetly falsified documents to cover up dubious transactions. And worse, Victor Bell, a childhood friend of Michael, now vice president of the company, who had secretly forged links with Harper Development's direct competitors. The car bombing was just the final element of an eviction plan. They knew that Michael, despite his flaws, would never have approved of their plans to divide the company, sell its most valuable assets to foreign groups, and completely abandon working-class neighborhoods to maximize profits. Jamie had been just unforeseen collateral damage. Or perhaps, Michael thought with a dull ache, an obstacle removed by those who couldn't bear a child seeing what they had hidden. Michael could have given up everything. Sell, run away, hide in oblivion. But something had changed. Jamie. His death had left a void filled with nothing, except a thirst for truth and justice. This is where the unlikely alliance took shape. Michael, the tycoon fallen from his pedestal. Anna Collins, the woman he once ignored, betrayed by his business, now driven by controlled rage. And Sarah Mitchell, the cold-blooded investigator, who understood that this fight went beyond a simple private matter. They devised a methodical plan. Used the flaws in the system Michael knew so well to turn it against those who had betrayed him. Tap into Anna's networks, once engaged in community struggles, to amplify the voices of the forgotten. And publish the results of Sarah's investigation in the right media at the right time. The following weeks were a battle on several fronts. Legal first. A request for a federal investigation was filed, supported by damning evidence provided by Sarah. Recordings, illicit wire transfers, email exchanges where the conspirators spoke of neutralizing Harper. Media, then. A major daily newspaper published an explosive report entitled Building on Ruins: The Harper Empire and the Internal War. The cover featured a photo of Jamie, with a simple caption, "He knew." Social, finally. Rallies erupted on the South Side. This time, not to denounce Harper, but to support the idea of real change. Michael appeared publicly at Anna's side and declared that he would be held accountable. Faces fell. Gerald Monroe was arrested during a board meeting. Rena Caldwell, cornered, cooperated with the law. Victor Bell attempted to flee the country but was intercepted at the airport. But despite all these victories, Michael understood that the real fight wasn't won in the courts or on the front pages of the newspapers. It was one on the streets he had helped build and then destroy. Alongside Anna, he launched a project to rebuild the South Side. Not with luxury buildings, but with affordable housing, renovated schools, and cultural centers. The project was named the Jamie Initiative, in memory of the child who had seen everything and sacrificed everything. Anna became a key figure in this movement. Sarah continued to investigate but remained in contact with them, ensuring from afar that the corruption did not return. Michael, at last, changed. Power was no longer about dominating, but about repairing. He no longer needed to build towers. He was now building bridges, human, social, and lasting. And sometimes, as he walked past Jamie's old house, he thought he heard a voice in the wind say to him, softly, "You heard this time." The Jamie Collins Foundation was not just a gesture of charity. It was a turning point, a stand. Michael Harper created it less to appease his conscience than to repair, as much as possible, what decades of indifference and profiteering had destroyed. He injected several $1 million of his personal fortune, but more importantly, he opened the doors to his empire. Each subsidiary of Harper Developments was now required to dedicate a percentage of its profits to local community development. It was no longer an option. It was a policy. Anna Collins was appointed co-director of the foundation. In the early days, some investors, shocked by the idea of a former whistleblower holding a strategic position, threatened to withdraw. Michael retained none of them. Anna assumed her duties with the elegance of a woman forged in pain. She established youth scholarships, a mentoring program that paired entrepreneurs with local teens, and founded an alternative school in the heart of the South Side, focused on art, civic engagement, and technology. The building of this school had on its facade a giant fresco, the face of Jamie, looking towards the future against a backdrop of a bright sky. It became an emblem, a reminder. Every year, the October 17, the date of Jamie's death, a ceremony was held in what was once a vacant lot, littered with debris and weeds. This place had been redeveloped by Harper Developments, but not to the old standards. This time, it had been designed in dialogue with the residents. Playgrounds, community gardens, an open-air amphitheater. The park was named Jamie's Breath Park. Children ran among the trees, climbing on steel sculptures that told the neighborhood's story. On the day of the ceremony, a respectful silence fell on the lawn. Neighborhood elders spoke. Students read poems. Anna recited a letter written to her son every year. Sarah Mitchell, who was often present, stood back, her hand on her heart. And Michael, his face marked by the years, witnessed all this, sitting on a bench that he had engraved with a simple sentence. He saw what others refused to see. Michael Harper's gaze was no longer that of the self-assured businessman whom nothing seemed able to shake. He had changed. He had experienced betrayal, loss, revelation. But he had also experienced redemption, that rare form of transformation that cannot be bought. He no longer sought accolades. He now refused interviews, awards, and offers of public office. All he wanted was to see these children run, learn, and dream. He sometimes stood at a distance, watching the teachers smile, the mothers chat, and the teenagers debate in the amphitheater. Sometimes his gaze met that of a 14-year-old boy, there, on a swing, in a classroom, in a garden. And he saw Jamie again. Always. What Jamie had unleashed went far beyond a foiled attack, a cleansed empire, or a renovated park. He had lit a movement. His last cry, delivered in fear but guided by courage, had awakened a sleeping collective conscience. The South Side would no longer be a forgotten neighborhood. It would become a laboratory of hope, an urban model copied by other cities. What a child had seen in a few seconds, powerful men had ignored for decades. And yet, thanks to him, the wind was turning.